And taking a little bit of a turn, we're also looking at structures. As we said, we're not done. Structure still needs some love. I think a lot of people will agree with the top point. We want to ensure attacker commitment. So at the moment, someone can show up and just shoot your citadel. And if they don't return, you still have to form a defense fleet. You don't know if they're coming back. And that can be a really unsatisfying thing. Nobody likes made you form. So imagine for an example where, like, in order to attack that structure, the attacker has to come in and drop like a siege structure. And that siege structure powers up and it like breaks through the structure, which then allows them to bash it, but they can't remove it from the field, and that thing is a little bit pricey. If they don't show up again, the defenders will simply destroy it, take a valuable bit of loot out of it, and they'll get paid for having to show up and defend their structure. And the attackers will have lost whatever that was. Whatever system we put in place here, we want to ensure that people are committed when they're actually a threat to the places that you live. There's also some lessons that we learned from World War B. 2, 3? Never.
Okay, a couple of points here. Does this mean that a structure will, when it shows vulnerable, will it now show invulnerable until there's actually a siege module planted, a siege engine planted and anchored, and breaks through it to vulnerable state and keeps it vulnerable, and therefore you can shoot it? So does that mean that we no longer have to be annoyed by Blood Raider forward operated bases shooting our structures? The worst case scenario, they just get rid of FOBs. Best case scenario, we never get the notifications anymore, and the silly little frigates circle around the upwell and don't shoot it. Or maybe they, I don't know, I don't think they've thought of it, but wouldn't that, guarantee they haven't, but wouldn't that be cool if the Blood Raiders dropped a siege thing and committed to attacking a random upwell? That would be interesting. It would be fun little content, right? It's like, okay, they've actually committed to it. They're not plugging anybody else, but they're going after that one. They've reinforced it. How do you defend against it? What kind of Blood Raider force will show up? I'm assuming just the usual spawn, right? It would probably be on the order of a defense fleet, probably. Bunch of APOCs, bunch of omens, augurs. It could be a random thing. You could just get, I expect it to be, if you're going to take out an upwell, they do significant DPS, actually. Can't knock that. So, yeah, I mean, an average spawn would be, say, 4 APOCs or sorry, doing math here. That would be, sorry, I'm trying to do math here. That 3 omens do the same DPS as 2 APOCs. So I suck at math so bad. I think that's 6 omens. Let's see, 2, 3, and 2. Yeah, 6 omens. Sorry, my math sucks. But yeah, 6 omens. Yeah, that's they do significant DPS. Don't get me wrong. And augurs too. So you'd have to break the augurs, Logi. They're tough little buggers, actually. And it would be difficult, but doable for a small corp. If you can't defend against that, you've got serious problems. Well, yeah, that would be cool, but that's probably not what they're thinking at all. It's not even on their radar to do that. But it would be nice. Best case scenario, we don't have to deal with Blood Raider notifications on our up walls anymore. That would be awesome. But remember, best case scenario. Worst case scenario. Oh, sorry. Typical scenario that I'm expecting. Blood Raiders is still gonna knock on your door and give you notifications. I don't know how that's possible, but they could be still flying around. Would you need a core? The question is, would you need a core to protect against a siege engine? I still have Astra houses without cores. Would you need a siege engine in that case? Probably, I'm assuming. But this defeats the ability of people to come in quietly at night with bombers and reinforce the structure. So in that sense, it's annoying that I won't be able to take in my bombers and while they're sleeping reinforce their shields. Unfortunately, that means that you'd have to use a siege module to do that, to plant it. You could still do that. You could plant it, but then you're planting a very expensive thing. And here's the dumb thing about this. The really stupid thing, I'm sure you've thought about this already. The really stupid thing is you plant an expensive thing, you shoot it, and you're still rolling the dice about the reinforcement time, right? What if it comes out just at the maximum, the worst case scenario for you for forming next time, right? So you're like, and you can't form. You just roll the dice, lost that. We'll have to try it again. Which, yeah, admittedly, that is probably something people will expect to absorb the cost of. How much is this going to cost them? What's reasonable price? Did she mention it? No. Won't be a reasonable price or something like that. Well, it wouldn't be $1 billion. A war deck is $100 million. And then it gets scaled into stupidity because it's like all she's talking about is a little bauble that a defense fleet gets if they get blue balled. You know, which is hopefully not insultingly low. Hopefully it's on the order of at least 100 million to put that siege engine down. Because, you know, they stand to gain a core, you know? So I think this is just a bauble they're throwing at us for, oh, poor blue ballers. And it will not affect pirates will blue ball you all day, you know? But to say fund somebody, so say somebody Vortex you 100 million, right? And then you've got about 5 structures, right? And they want to reinforce all of them. They won't be able to do all of them at once because, well, they might. How many structures are they going to have to anchor, right? Are these structures vulnerable at the time? How long do they take to anchor? How long does it take to power up? It makes it vulnerable. That's what I'm assuming. I'm just guessing because she didn't say. So you put a structure down. It makes something vulnerable. But you can't attack it until... wait a minute. This makes no sense. So you put it down. Like, okay, so they put a bunch down, right? They say cost them 100 million each. I wish. But it's probably going to cost like 50 million or insultingly 10 million, who knows, right? And these people have no idea. So it cost me 500 million, half a bill, to plunk all these siege engines down. They make the structure vulnerable to shooting so we can reinforce it. Now we've got to wait until it comes out of reinforcement in order to shoot the siege engine to get some bling, or some baubles, right? What kind of loot is it? It cost you 100 million. What's it going to drop though, right? Is it going to be like 100% drop like the core, right? all these questions come up. It's like, is it going to be worth even, I mean, why do we have to wait until the end of the reinforcement timer to blow it up? That makes no sense, right? It's like, how does this even work? She said it'll take down the structure and then you can shoot it. What if she meant you plant a structure, it does the reinforcing for you, and then it's locked in until alternative. So basically, you can just run around, anchor all these structures that can't be blown up, guaranteeing an RF state? She could mean anything like that, right? I first assumed when she said that it was like, oh, well, let's check it out. Okay, so that was the end of it. So 15.
Siege structure powers up and it like breaks through the structure, which then allows them to bash it, but they can't remove it from the field, and that thing is a little bit pricey.
So, okay, so yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that's what she meant. My first take on it was that all the structures are invulnerable. You plant it down, it makes that structure vulnerable. Everything is now invulnerable. But if it's invulnerable, you can't target it. How can you SIP scan it? Oh, fuck. There's just so many, like, okay, so what the hell? It sounds like a concept thing that they're not going to follow through with, because it just sounds so harebrained. It's like there's so many, like, what the hell are you saying? It's like, wait. One assumes that in order to bash the structure, you've got to use the engine thing. So are Blood Raiders immune to this? Can they just annoy you with notifications all the time? It's like, yeah, I mean, at first it sounds really cool, and then you start digging and you're like, that makes no sense. Even if you ignore the Blood Raiders, even if you ignore everything else, it's like you're just simply trying to prevent players from RFing your shields on whim, right? Because that's the first one. You can do it while they're sleeping, right? So theoretically, I go around to the War HQ of the pirate faction while they're sleeping. I anchor a siege engine, which makes players, I'm assuming that Blood Raiders will just ignore that, players able to shoot it. But can I target it beforehand? Can I ship scan it beforehand? Is this preventing me from targeting an upwell and ship scanning it? You know what, folks? I think it is. I think they are preventing players from ship scanning structures until you've actually untargetable, right? I think it's going to be everything invulnerable when you can't target the structure. Because if you can target a structure, it's not like they can prevent it using the safety code, safety toggle, because it's a war target. You can shoot it if you target it, right? It's how they can prevent people shooting it if you can target it, right? It would take an engine on the size of the Crime Watch to detect that, right? You'd need to code something to say, no, player, you can't shoot it until you've anchored a siege module. Regardless of whether they recognize the fact that Blood Raiders do it all the time, that shooting structures is yeah, I mean, are they invalidating Blood Raider structures completely? I mean, when did Blood Raider structures get coded? Obviously after upwells were introduced, right? So are they getting rid of Blood Raiders entirely? Is my cash cow going to be destroyed? That's what I'm worried about. But I don't think it's even on the radar. I think it's just going to be a huge derp for them, and the Blood Raiders are still going to give us notifications. Bet you anything. And then, in their embarrassment, they'll probably just remove the system entirely. Say, oh, job done. We got rid of it. And act like idiots. But who knows? Who knows with them? Maybe they won't even understand what's going on. Hopefully. But yeah, that's kind of scary. Yeah, from an intel point of view, what's the structure like that you're going to be facing until you actually anchor that structure? I mean, you would have to spend money to get intel, which would be interesting, but still, I mean, yeah. I mean, would you be able to detect there's a core? Probably, because you just click on it and you see no core, right? So it's just so much stupid in this. It's just, you know.
If they don't show up again, the defenders will simply destroy it, take a valuable bit of loot out of it, and they'll get paid for having to show up and defend their structure.
Okay, so people show up to defend their structure. Usually it takes like at least 3 players to defend against your average one-man pirate corp, right? So there's 3 players. They share, what, 33 million each? If they get 100 million loot thing, that would be nice, you know? But I doubt it's, I think it's going to be just a shiny bauble. You get like 5 million each. Yay for showing up. Yay, you're so cool. Thanks for waking up in the middle of the night. Or whatever. I mean, your RF timer is going to be when you plan on defending it, right? Not the attacker. So, yeah, kind of fun. And you'll get a kill mail of the pirates, so it'll be on your war report. That will be cool. That would be embarrassing for the pirates, but like they care. They have no shame. But yeah, it's interesting. We'll see. I think I plumbed the depths of that. I'm sure I'll think about something in the future on this that hasn't occurred to me right now, but I tried my best to theory craft what the hell she just talked about.
And the attackers will have lost whatever that was. Whatever system we put in place here, we want to ensure that people are committed when they're actually a threat.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I think it was looking at me in the face all this time.
To the places that you live.
Oh, shit. Continue to replace POS functionality. Forward operating bases with limited capacity and services. What that tells me is that they've decided to get rid of Pirate Strongholds entirely, and replace it with a player forward operating base with limited capacity and services. It will be, we've now eliminated, it's like, I don't, based on the fact that incursions have been here forever, I assume that FOBs will be here forever, but we can't deny that them using the exact same terminology of something else is, we're going to replace that. That's the assumption, the implication. So yeah, that'll be troubling, for me at least, because it's a huge cash cow for multi-boxers. well, what isn't, right? But still, it's pretty cool. So, wow. I wouldn't mind it, honestly. But it's just, I wouldn't mind this entire system being enacted because it means my friends won't get notifications of, and me, of our structures being bashed by stupid blood raiders. It's hellaciously annoying. But yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. I think that's what's going to happen. You cannot target an upwall. Therefore, blood raiders are irrelevant. And therefore, let's get rid of them. Let's replace them with player forward operating bases that are a different functionality altogether, but with the same name. So we have to get rid of them, blah, 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 blah. I'm sure they have a big storyline about that. Story arc. Well, hopefully, can you imagine if they just went, oh, announce, probably, patch notes. But yeah, they didn't talk about it at all, which is kind of creepy that she didn't talk about it. It's weird, isn't it? They put all these bullet points and then they just like cruise on by it and you're like,
There's also some lessons that we learned from World War B. 2, 3? Never mind.
I'm muting it because I'm assuming she's going to, yeah. It's like World War B, who the hell cares? Capital, 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 blah, 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 blah. I'm just guessing. At the instant she stops trying to, her body language stops kissing up to the crowd, the goons, you know? Right.
We're also looking at capital ship retether time. I know this one's a little spicy, but at the moment there's a difference between a sub-capital ship, which has a 60-second tether time with the combat timer. When it lands on a structure, that 60-second timer is really a lot. If we look at this in terms of a HP to second metric, capital ships are totally in a different league. And so we want to make sure that that balance is reasonable. So fighting on an undock can still be a thing. Like, you can still put your capitals on your undock and fight. But once you untether, there's actually meaningful risk similar to that subcap risk that already exists. In
what the hell is she talking about?
general, improved gameplay and counterplay around Ansible X gates. They're a super useful nullsec tool, but at the same time, they're also really frustrating for anyone who wants to mess with you. So the ability, there's kind of 2 points here. One is projection, which is a thing that I'm not exactly taking a look at, and the other is counterplay. If you see someone in a system and they're on an Ansible X gate, you don't really want to engage because they can instantly disappear at any time. So you know that it's not going to be successful for you, and so why would you take that risk? And of course, continue looking at POSes. So that could be, POSes currently have 2 uses. One is like capital storage, and one as day tripping into a wormhole with a cheap, easy, rapid to set up structure. So we're taking a look at that. And there's other changes we want to make as well. So as a
Wait, what? I'm just trying to parse what she just said about that, because that was way too brief, right? She didn't even say the word forward operating base, but so you gotta, like, you know, it's a riddle, right?
You're fighting in nullsec warfare, and you attack a flex structure, the defender just drops another one almost immediately.
Yeah, you would have shut up. I don't give a crap.
And there's other changes we want to make.
Damn it. Sorry.
Capital ships are totally in a different league. And so we want to make sure that that balance is reasonable. So fighting on an undock can still be a thing. Like, you can still put your capitals on your undock and fight. But once you untether, there's actually meaningful risk similar to that subcap risk that already exists.
I still don't understand what the hell she's talking about.
in general, improved gameplay and counterplay around Ansible gates. They're a super useful nullsec tool, but at the same time, they're also really frustrating for anyone who wants to mess with you. So the ability, there's kind of 2 points here.
Gates, great.
One is projection, which is the thing that I'm not exactly taking a look at, and the other is counterplay. If you see someone in a system and they're on an Ansible gate, you don't really want to engage because they can instantly disappear at any time. So you know that it's not going to be successful for you, and so why would you take that risk?
What do you mean, why should I take that risk? What? That's not a risk. What? Never
and of course, continue looking at pauses. So,
okay. So
that could be, pauses currently have 2 uses. One is like capital storage.
Okay, capital storage. So they're going to offer this new type of player forward operating base with capital storage. But it said limited capacity, so what the hell is she saying? She wants to get rid of capital storage at pauses by doing limited capacity, so they're getting rid of that.
And one as day tripping into
day tripping, so basically it's going to be a day tripper thing.
A wormhole with a cheap, easy, rapid to set up structure.
Okay, so they want to make it a rapid setup structure that'll last for a day? That's what I'm getting, right? So it's a temporary structure that you can, because she's talking about wormholes, how can you get capitals in wormholes? So it's going to be limited capacity. You can't, they're getting rid of the capital storage in pauses anymore, and it's just going to be a small unit thing with services. So yeah, it'll be a temporary upwell structure that'll last a day or 2. Who knows, right? That's what I'm guessing. It'll be really like shite. But yeah, I think that's what is gonna, the concept is, that's definitely the concept they have. Whether it's gonna bear fruit or not, we'll have to see. But yeah, it's definitely, if I understand it correctly, they're gonna get rid of fobs for sure. But who the hell knows, right?